This is Greg Sayre. I have 1 o'clock, but the speakers are trickling in. Let's give it 2 more minutes before we start.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the public statement hearing for DPS Broadband Assessment Program, matter number 21-02182. All attendees' lines are muted upon entry. The hearing has begun. For any technical difficulties, please call 1-800-342-3330. The judge will be on shortly. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Let's get going. Mr. McLean, are you ready to go on the record?
Yes, Your Honor. We are on the record.
Thank you very much. I call matter number 21-02182, Commission's broadband study and mapping pursuant to the Broadband Connectivity Act. Good afternoon and welcome. We're here today for a public statement hearing that was noticed on January 26th, 2022. This public statement hearing concerns the Public Service Commission's study and mapping of broadband service, which basically means high-speed internet service. In a minute, we'll have a presentation from the Department of Public Service staff about this study and what we're looking to learn from the public. The public statement hearing to be held today, now and later at 6 p.m. and again at 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock p.m. on March 3rd and 4th are intended for public input into the study. My name is Greg Sayre. I am an administrator at the Department of Public Service. I'm responsible for presiding over the hearings in this case and any legal procedural issues that might arise. This matter is currently before the Public Service Commission, and the study is being conducted by Department of Public Service staff. The commission consists of 7 members, and we are honored to have 2 of the commissioners online with us today, Commissioner Diane Berman and Commissioner John Majore. Commissioner Berman, would you like to make some remarks?
Yes, thank you so much, Judge. And as you said, my name is Diane Berman. Very happy to be a part of this public service hearing today as a listener. My role really is that. This hearing on the broadband assessment program and the study is a really important one. And I intend to listen virtually to this. And I appreciate those who are here making their statements virtually. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Commissioner Berman. Commissioner Majore, would you like to make some remarks?
Thank you, Judge Sayre. This is the 3rd hearing in the series that Commissioner Berman and I have listened in on. And speaking for myself, but I know Commissioner Berman feels the same way. I've learned an awful lot from hearing the public speakers, and I think this part of the process is very important. And I also would like to thank everybody who's participating today and coming out for today's hearing. So you won't hear from me again. I'm here to listen, as Commissioner Berman said. So thank you very much for participating.
Thank you, Commissioner Majore. Before we get into the details of the study, I want to explain the other ways you can comment in this matter other than by speaking at these public statement hearings. If you did not pre-register to speak at one of the hearings, but you would like your views included in the record, there are a variety of other ways to comment that were listed in the public notice for these hearings. For those of you with computer access, we're showing a slide with the other ways to comment, and all of the details are in the January 26th public notice for today's event. You can comment by submitting comments on the department's website, or by email, or by regular mail, or even by phone. And staff will explain in a minute how you can participate in the study by completing our broadband assessment, study, and speed test. Regardless of how the comments are submitted, they will be given equal consideration. Comments may be submitted and will be considered throughout the pendency of this proceeding. However, and you'll be this date again a few times from us, because this study needs to be done in a timely way, we really need your input by March 18th. Department of Public Service staff now has a brief presentation explaining this study and the kinds of information we're hoping to get from the public. Please go ahead to slide 5.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this important statement hearing on the issue of broadband mapping. My name is Valerie Galasso, and I am the Chief of Public Policy in the Office of Telecommunications at the Department of Public Service. I'd like to kick us off today by sharing some background on our new broadband assessment program, which focuses on the study of high-speed broadband infrastructure in New York State. In April of last year, the legislature passed the Comprehensive Broadband Connectivity Act of 2021. This bill allowed the Department of Public Service to create the Broadband Assessment Program, a program now housed within the agency's Office of Telecommunications. The program, whose work will be updated annually, will release this spring New York's first ever in-depth interactive broadband map detailing the availability and reliability of high-speed broadband infrastructure statewide. We are committed to making this program something that can be used by everyone, but we need your input in order to understand what's happening in your community. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what mapping broadband looks like and how we're conducting our research. Mapping broadband infrastructure is no small task. That's why we're using a three-pronged approach. First, we're using internet service provider data to help us assess gaps statewide. Second, we're conducting field verification of high-speed infrastructure in the most remote places in New York State. And third, we're hearing straight from the consumer via our broadband assessment survey and through our series of public statement hearings. Some of you are probably wondering what we're hoping to learn from today. We want to hear about your internet accessibility barriers writ large. Among other topics, we're interested in hearing from those of you who are dealing with the following. You lack internet service entirely. Internet is unaffordable to you. You lack ISP competition in your area. And finally, you don't feel like you're getting the speeds that you pay for. Lastly, we have two calls to action. First, we are asking everyone to take our broadband assessment and speed test by March 18th, 2022. You can visit www.empirestateBroadband.com from a home computer, laptop, mobile device, or while visiting a public Wi-Fi location. If you're unable to take the survey due to lack of connectivity, you can call our toll-free broadband assessment line at 1-855-NY-BB-MAP. That's 1-855-692-2627. For those of you who have already completed the survey, thank you. We are proud to report to date, we have had more than 17,000 households and businesses from every corner of the state complete this survey, and this number continues to grow. Our final call to action, we want to make every eligible New Yorker aware about the FCC's new Affordable Connectivity Program, also known as the ACP. This program provides discounts up to $30 a month toward internet service. Please visit www.fcc.gov/ACP or call 877-384-2575 for more information and to sign up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galasso. Now I will explain the process that we're going to follow today. The purpose of our hearing, as we've explained, is to provide you with an opportunity to tell the commission your thoughts on the issues in this proceeding. The statements you make today will become a part of the case record. We have a court reporter joining us who will prepare a transcript of the hearing, which will be included in the official record of this proceeding, so that your comments can be considered by the commission. When it is ready, the transcript will be available for view on the Department of Public Service website. This hearing is also being live streamed on the internet. This hearing is not an evidentiary hearing with cross-examination or a question and answer session, but it is a forum to hear comments from you. If you have registered to make a statement, we ask that you please summarize lengthy written statements orally and submit the full written statement by email or mail. In order to be fair to people who are waiting to speak, we ask that you try to stay within about a 5-minute time limit for your oral comments today and summarize any longer comments by sending them preferably electronically to the commission. If you seem to be taking too long, I may jump in and ask you to summarize and finish up. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're holding this public statement hearing and all the other public statement hearings this week and next week virtually. If this were an in-person hearing, people would be allowed to sign up and make statements as they come into the hearing and as long as the hearing is going on. But since in this format, we cannot easily identify people as they get on the line to listen to the hearing, we need to use pre-registration. Like the cards that would be used if you've been in prior Public Service Commission hearings to identify speakers in a face-to-face hearing, the pre-registration process allows us to identify people who indicated that they wanted to make a comment. A number of people have signed up electronically to speak at this public statement hearing. When you speak, please use only one audio input and one audio output at your end. Otherwise, we may experience problems with feedback when you're speaking. Let's get into the statements. I'll call the people who have timely pre-registered electronically one by one to speak. After we call your name, we will unmute your line, and either Joseph White from our Consumer Services Office or I will let you know you're unmuted. Please remember that if you have put your own telephone line or your computer on mute, you will also have to unmute your line at your end before you begin to speak. Please speak slowly and clearly so that the court reporter can accurately capture your statement for the record. Let's get right into it. First speaker is Jean Morelli, Councilwoman from the town of Rush.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to participate in this hearing. As you said, I am a newly elected council person for the town of Rush. I don't know if you know where that is, but we are a suburb of Rochester, New York, in Monroe County. And we are a rural agricultural county. It's not small geographically, but it's about 3,800 people. And obviously, while you're holding these hearings, it became so evident to me during COVID and when we had to hold all our hearings via Zoom, and so many people had difficulty participating. There's just been so much discussion about the poor quality of internet service here in the town of Rush, and in some sections, and especially in the southwest section of the town, people cannot log on. It's very poor connectivity. It goes in and out. And I really wanted to bring your attention to focus on this corner of New York State and to see what kind of help we might get. There are service providers. They're not always reliable. There's Green Light, which is north of us, but they claim that they don't have enough reason to come to the town of Rush. I hear they're very good, but I guess we won't know for a long time because, as I said, it's the population is low compared to other towns in this county. But, I don't know what we can do or what incentive can be given to a company like Greenlight to come down to our town because the people here really need help. I don't know how the kids functioned having to uh, attend school remotely. I know as a citizen attending virtual meetings and the town putting on virtual meetings, people had to go all different places to try and log on. At any rate, that was my impetus in joining this, and I was very happy to see this as something that I'm hoping we can provide some help to the people of the town of Rush, that there will be some assistance in getting the providers to come to Rush, and anything that you can do to help would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. I'll log off.
Thank you, Ms. Morelli, and I am very familiar with Rush. I live just up the road in Parrington. Our next speaker is Dennis Doyle. Mr. Doyle, I do not see you in the list of speakers, but you may be calling in on the telephone. If you're on the phone now, please press *3 on your telephone and we'll identify you and open your line.
No raised hand for Dennis Doyle, but Shane, you're in twice. So what's going to happen is when the judge calls on you, there'll be an echo on your end. So it's either you have to choose. You have your hand up. Oh, there. You don't need to have your hand up. We'll call on you when you're ready. You have one other hand up, Your Honor, but it is not Dennis Doyle.
Okay, and actually our next speaker is Shane Butler, the Director of Planning in Norwich.
And there, you've been unmuted.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this very important topic. Again, I'm from Shenango County. We're a very rural area in New York State, where a lot of our towns have vast areas of state land, which makes it very difficult for some of the providers to get out to those areas because of the wide expense of putting in fiber. So we have to kind of rely on some of these other opportunities. We have one town that has 50% of their town as state land. So it makes it very difficult. But again, this assessment is a great start to that. I just hope that we can also incorporate some of the other studies that have been done by our counties and regions to, really put more information into the hands of the state to really see those areas that are still lacking broadband for our schools, for our employers, for our healthcare, not necessarily just the hospitals themselves, but for our elderly population. In Shenango County, we have a big percentage of our population is the elderly. And, especially during COVID, it makes it very difficult for them to get to, hospitals and medical appointments when they don't have quality broadband. And, sometimes we've been finding with this broadband assessment, they aren't really familiar with some of the answers, the questions, some of the terminology in those questions about, what speeds are available to them. They really just don't know. So maybe if not in this assessment, but future assessments, there's an opportunity to, put some kind of different language or really break it down to, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but really break it down to some of the questions almost to an elementary level to make it easier for those that don't understand this technology to answer those questions. But I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butler. Our next speaker is Keith Cooper, Director of Technology from the Spencer Van Etten Central School District.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak. I just had one point that and it probably will get echoed by other speakers in this forum, but the I think there needs to be a distinction between what is high-speed broadband and other connectivity that that may not necessarily be high speed. Um, just a distinction that not all broadband services are created equal, and that especially in the more rural areas where the choices are limited, many times people end up paying um, for broadband that is less than optimal, and sometimes even as slow as, or if not slower than what dial-up used to be. So, so I just think that we should look at equity and the quality of broadband, in addition to the availability of broadband, especially in the rural areas.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Did that conclude your statement?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Joe Calzone. If you are on your telephone, please hit *3 so we can identify you. I don't see you on the list of computer users this afternoon.
Neither do I, Your Honor, and I don't see any raised hands other than Shane Butler's hand is up.
Okay, we'll circle back and try and get him on the second round. Our next speaker is Brian Fay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this chance to speak. My name is Brian Fay. I'm the Executive Director of the Syracuse Northeast Community Center. And I appreciate all the comments that have been made about rural areas. And I want to turn it a little bit to urban. Our issues here for our neighbors aren't that there isn't broadband available, but that it has been largely priced beyond their ability to afford, even with the discount mentioned earlier, the $30 a month. And part of that problem is that there is no real competition. Here in Syracuse, we have really two providers, Spectrum and Verizon is very limited. And the other issue is that many of our population are New American, immigrant, and refugee. We have tremendous elderly population, and we have entrenched generational poverty. So we have groups of people who have not had access to programs that will allow them to connect. And when the pandemic hit, our school district was severely impacted by that, and our students were severely impacted by the lack of ability to connect. We're hoping that there's a possibility within this within what's being proposed here and beyond for there to be digital navigator services, people who are going to work on a community level to go out and help people connect with internet services, to help them connect with training services so they can access digital tools, and also so that we can be a collective voice for those who are shut out of these conversations. I appreciate that we're getting into this and understanding that this is a basic right and equity issue. And while I've also been appreciative, the city of Syracuse has installed some Wi-Fi access points at public places, such as on our community center. I think of it very much like it's really good to have water at a community well, but by now we all need running water in our own homes, and that is what's happening with digital access. So I appreciate the efforts that are being done here, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak. That's the end of my statement.
And thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Patrick Hoffland.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Patrick Hoffland. I'm Chief Development Officer for First Light Fiber. We are a service provider headquartered in Albany, New York, and obviously we are a broadband provider. We have what we call a middle mile network that navigates throughout the state of New York, as well as enterprise and carrier customers. Today, we do not offer residential services, although we enable many of the players who are seeking to go provide fiber to the home services to many of the folks on this call in the state of New York. I think, all of the things that have been said earlier are extremely important. One of the challenges that service providers like us are having is some of the regulatory red tape that's in place today. There were some rules that were put in as little as 2 years ago by the state of New York, and Department of Transportation right-of-way fees that have made it very problematic for us to build. So, we would love to continue as a lot of service providers in the state would love to move forward with fiber to the home initiatives. But I can tell you the cost to do that, the uncertainty around it, especially around timelines, has become, again, problematic for many of us. So I would encourage folks on this call to reach out to your politicians, any local folks, community organizations, again, that can help all of the service providers and really try to minimize the red tape and the costs that right now are impacting service providers' ability to, again, provide all of the broadband services that the state is looking for. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Justin Cipher.
Hello, I'm coming to you from the northernmost part of New York State, northwest of the Adirondack Park in the St. Lawrence Valley. I want to start by thanking each of you and the powers that be for acknowledging the importance of comprehensive broadband infrastructure across all of New York State, even and perhaps especially in rural areas where there's less of a business incentive for commercial ISPs to build out that infrastructure. I witnessed this investment the past few years as people who live around me were connected to Verizon Fios. Thank you for this. While I acknowledge perfection is not a realistic outcome, unfortunately past rural broadband investments have addressed some, but not enough of the broadband inequities. So as we look forward, I ask that the methodology used attempt to address these new inequities. In my case, I bought a land and I'm building a house as I speak in rural northern New York. I was excited to see people around me recently be connected with Fios due to this recent investment. Then when it stopped, before I was able to be connected, I learned that myself and about 15 to 20 residents around me were in a different zone, one that was believed to have broadband and thus connectivity was not part of that program. Trust me, we do not have it despite numerous attempts. To make matters worse, a Verizon line crossing my property within 75 feet of my home is the one I believe connecting people a couple hundred yards to one side of me and a quarter mile to the other. I won't call the previous map unorthodox, but unfortunate. I don't know the rubric. While I would love and in fact need to be connected for my work from home business, I care equally about others who need this critical access or can't afford it due to lack of competition. I want to thank you for listening. I'm just a person, not representing an organization or a business or a community, but I do respectfully request that a deeper analysis take place around assumptions of access and connectivity and non-connectivity as you move forward. Thank you again.
Your Honor, I looked for Dennis Doyle, and I don't see Dennis present, and I will look for Joe Calzone as our other one. Your Honor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry about that. I looked for both, it was so quiet. I looked for Joe Calzone, no Joe Calzone electronically, and no Dennis Doyle. We could ask folks to raise their hands now if they're here by hitting
Yes,
*3.
I might have muted myself. If you gentlemen are on the line, please hit *3 on your telephone now, and we'll recognize you.
I don't see any raised hands.
Okay, well, we have plenty of time this afternoon. I'd like to give people who did not register in advance an opportunity to speak if they'd like to. If you are participating electronically, you'll need to find an icon on your screen that looks a little bit like a hand, usually around the lower right-hand part of your screen, but not necessarily. And you might have to move your cursor around to make it appear. If you click on that, Mr. White, who's running this meeting, will find you in the participant list, call your name and unmute you. And then when he calls your name, please go ahead, make your statement. And when you're finished with hand again, to unraise your hand so that we can move to the next person. Anyway, those of you who are electronic and would like to speak at this time, please hit that raise hand icon.
I'm not seeing anybody, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll go to people who are participating by telephone, who did not register in advance but would like to speak now. If you wish to speak, please press *3 now on your telephone. And Mr. White will find all the people requesting to speak on his screen, and we'll unmute you one at a time, and we'll get through everybody who would like to speak at this point. So again, if you are on the phone and would like to speak, please press *3 right now.
Your Honor, this is the court reporter. Do you think I can get the identity of call-in user 2?
No, I don't, Mr. White, do you?
Well, we don't normally require that, Mr. McLean. We don't normally ask for a caller's ID if they've called in. So they might just be here listening and not wanting to give their name this time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a public hearing, anybody can dial in. So do we have any requests from anybody at this point, Mr. White?
We do not, Your Honor.
Then I guess we can wrap the hearing up. I want to remind members of the public, if you could move to the next slide, that they may submit public comments throughout this proceeding, as we've explained before by the other means, and as explained in the notice of public statement hearing issued on January 26th. And as we have explained a couple of times earlier, we really need to hear from you by March 18th to include your input into the study. I thank the commenters very much for their participation and willingness to speak. I also thank Commissioners Berman and Majori for participating, Joseph White from our Consumer Services Office for administrating this hearing, and our court reporter, Anthony McLean. This hearing is now concluded and will go off the record.
Thank you.
We are off the record.
Thank you, everyone. Go ahead
Everybody,
and end the meeting, Your Honor.
yeah, everybody stay safe. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. And at this point, we will terminate the live stream and close down the call. Thank you all very much.